I think the distinction between our understanding of a cult versus a religious community is oftentimes the size, right? And whether or not those beliefs and practices are normalized and accepted by the general society. I'm currently a postdoc fellow, and I am in the religious studies department, and I teach courses that focuses on the religious experience and history of people of African descent, particularly in the U.S. and the Caribbean as well. Yeah, so I think the Mormon, preferably they would like to be called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Their history is a great microhistory of race and religion. It's very much an American religion. It was started and invented here by their founder, Joseph Smith, who in some ways was progressive for his time, but wasn't necessarily much different than voices that existed in society that were calling for the end of slavery. So he was very much in line with that. His shortcoming was that he didn't necessarily believe in the mixing of the races. So even though he was willing to worship alongside different races, he wasn't willing to see them come together in any meaningful interaction. And that kind of laid the seed for the next leader who came after him, who then took it to another level, where policies were instituted to ensure that that didn't happen. So the policy was intended to ensure that one, if you were of African descent, you didn't feel welcome in the church. And two, even if you did choose to join in spite of that lack of acceptance and fellowship, so to speak, you didn't have the opportunity to marry interracially as well because of certain marriage requirements that were restricted from people of African descent. So the idea was, because you didn't meet those requirements, then if you were a white male or female, then you wouldn't necessarily want to associate in that kind of relationship with a person of African descent. And that started in the 1950s and continued, in the 1850s and continued through 1978. It's a long time. And, since that point, the church has done little to repair that harm. So the legacy of that history still lives on in the culture of the church and in beliefs and practices and attitudes that are held towards people of African descent. So I'm really interested in not necessarily examining the early history of the church, but I'm interested in contemporary members and trying to create a narrative around how do they make space for themselves and create place for themselves in a community that, one, has this history, and two, has done little to repair that that harm that was institutionalized within the organization. And there are lots of black members of the church who are now, due to the advancement in social media, due to the access to technology, they're able to get their voice out and have conversations about these issues in a meaningful way. Whereas before, The church is very hierarchical in structure, and if you didn't have a leadership position, your ability to have your voice be heard was very, very limited. So social media has changed, and access to various technologies changed that dynamic. So what I'm observing within the communities, people of African descent who either has grown up in the church since 1978 and or joined the church after 1978, they joined the church and they were attracted to the church because of certain beliefs that they gravitated towards. And now they're not necessarily willing to throw those committed beliefs out the window. They're fighting to say, we belong here too. And how are we going to create an environment or space in which we can all worship as equals? Yeah, so I think there's definitely overlaps. I think political science and or gov, as we call it here, they look at it through political rhetoric and or political policies that have been instituted, and how race, those policies and or rhetorics were mediated by race, right? I'm looking at it through the lens of, personal beliefs that people might hold dear to themselves, that are important to community formation, identity formation, and how race influences or mediates those beliefs and identity and community formation. Definitely within the courses that I teach, we look at how religious beliefs were both, on one hand, used as a means to engender political policies and rhetoric to ensure that people of African descent did not advance in society. And then on the flip side of that, the same religion, in most cases, were used to make the complete opposite argument, to say that, based on our belief in the divine, so to speak, we're all created in the divine's image, we are all divine individuals. We deserve to be just as anyone else deserve to be a part of society in a meaningful way. That means politically, that means economically, that means socially, right? I think religious practices, religious beliefs, and ideas are definitely some of the building blocks of how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us, right? And not only how we perceive ourselves, but then how we interact with others based on that perception of who we are as a people. And the same can be said, our religious identity informs how others perceive us and how they interact with us, right? So if you are a Seventh-day Adventist who worships specifically on Saturdays, right? Why is it that you're not coming out to party with us, right? And understanding and being accommodating of someone's belief in that regards. If you're Muslim and you don't go partying on Fridays, why is it that you don't do it? Because that's when you gather to pray, right? If you are various forms of Christian beliefs, why is it that you don't do certain things, right? And understanding those motivations behind people's action or inaction can help us to interact with each other in a meaningful way that, oh, this person doesn't do this, so it's not going to be offensive to me if they don't take a drink from me, right? Or if they don't come to my party, right? And I think understanding religious beliefs in our public life is important for that reason, right? So our religious beliefs, as I mentioned before, motivates sometimes our political actions, right? We see a lot of debate now about abortion rights, right? And some of that is driven by religious beliefs, right? Why is this person so committed to ensuring that, the life of an unborn child is protected, so to speak, right? And me understanding that can help me to know how to approach you in a conversation, right? Or, on the flip side of that, why is, having personal choice and the ability to make our own decisions are sometimes motivated by religious beliefs, right? So how is it possible that we can both be religious and feel that, protecting the life of an unborn child is the most important, or, granting a woman the right to choose? So those, our religious beliefs can inform, even those hot button topic issues, so to speak. Even the way someone dresses, right? If a woman wears a hijab, or if you see someone wearing a turban, why is that person wearing the turban all the time? All those things, having an appreciation and an understanding of those information removes this sense of otherness that we might see in others, and just say, oh yeah, that person might be a Muslim, right? Or that person might be Buddhist or something like that, right? And it removes this sense that people are different from us in a negative way, and informs our view of the world that, even though that person might be Jewish or might be, right, that's a part of their religious belief. It has nothing to do with who they are as a human being, right, and the way that I should respect them, and the way that I should be willing to engage in a conversation. I think your college experience offers you a unique opportunity to exist in a bubble for at least 4 years, right, or however long it takes you to complete it, where you have people from different ethnic background, cultural background, national identity, religious identity, sexual orientation, right, all coming together in a space that you might not necessarily find once you go out into the working world, right? So I think coming to college is an opportunity to expose yourself to new ideas, and whether or not you adopt those ideas or not, at least know, why people have those ideas, what's the motivation behind it, and be respectful of it. I would say yes. I think the distinction between our understanding of a cult versus a religious community is oftentimes the size, right? And whether or not those beliefs and practices are normalized and accepted by the general society. In many ways, I see the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints initially being viewed as such, as a cult, right? And now it's a worldwide religion that has been normalized and in many ways seen as one of the quintessential religious American community in the world, right? Because it's grown in size, and a lot of its image and public relations has been normalized into mainstream society. So yeah, I think so. You see that with the formation of Islam within the African American community. A lot of the early version of Islam was viewed as a cult, but it's since grown and changed and become more accepted and normalized. I think one of the important things to keep in mind that our negative perception of what it means to be a cult wasn't necessarily a bad thing historically. A cult was just this idea that you are dedicated and worship a specific individual. Now I think the word cult means, you see it on the news oftentimes, right, where people are doing inhumane things or doing things that are considered illegal or what have you. But the idea that a cult becoming a religion, I think the trajectory is possible.
Okay. Yes. And I think that'll be it.
All right.